Ooh, that looks tasty. Folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Distilled from Patterson Games, designed by Dave Beck with art by Eric Evenson. And before I get started, I do have to point out that I was given this copy by the publisher. So what this game is this is a kind of a deck building, kind of a push your luck, contract fulfillment game in which you are a distillery making all kinds of different spirits. And in this game, you'll be taking on the role of a distiller in a distillery and making various spirits. And you're going to do that through a couple of different phases where you're going to be buying components and ingredients. And then after you have bought them, you will be distilling them into, hopefully, one of the different recipes here, which will earn you points and earn you money as well. And you'll be doing that over the course of 7 rounds, and whoever has the most spirit points at the end of the game will be the winner. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played, we'll jump into my final thoughts. You want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played. And overall, this is actually a fairly simple game. What's going to happen is you're going to start each round with the market phase. And in the market phase, you're going to be able to use the money that you've earned or started the game with to buy different ingredients. And there's 3 different types of ingredients or cards that you can buy. You can buy brewery upgrades, like these right here. And as you can see, what these do is this one here is simply giving you a benefit for your brewery. So every time you age a spirit, you're going to get to add more flavor to it. Well, this one is a specialist that's going to give you a bonus at the beginning of every round. And you're going to be able to get up to 3 of these little upgrade cards in your distillery per player per game. Then here we have premium ingredients, which you're going to use to brew, or I should say distill your different spirits. And then down here we have different barrels and bottles, which you're going to use to sell your spirits, and you're going to be using them to age them and brew your different spirits. Then down at the bottom, we have basic ingredients, which are always here, are very cheap. You have your yeast, you have your water, you have your grain sugar, plant sugar, fruit sugar, you have clay barrels, and you have wooden barrels. And then we'll talk about those 2 things in just a moment. And so what's going to happen is you're going to go around and around, and you're going to be purchasing things. It's important to note you can only ever have 2 from this row down here, and as many as you can afford from up there. And so you're going to make your purchase, and we'll just say that I wound up purchasing a yeast, and I wound up getting a wooden barrel, or no, we won't say, we'll say I got a clay barrel, and up here I got some grapes, and then we flip a new one out, and we'll just pretend that from an earlier turn, I already had some water and a couple of plant sugars. We'll just pretend that we're in turn 2 here. So once everyone's made all their purchases, you're going to go into the distilling phase. And for that, I'm going to bring over this board right here so we can look at it a little bit closer. And so what you'll see here is I have my CEO, and he has a once per market phase power. You can get something for a discount. I have place here for all of my market upgrades that I may get, like so. And then what we're doing is down here. So we'll just assume that I already had in my storeroom, I had this bottle, and I picked up this clay barrel, so that's where items go over there. And then over here is where I would store all my different ingredients. And when it's time to distill, and you can distill 1 spirit per round, you're going to put in the middle all of your sugars. So for me, if you recall, I had my 3 fruit sugars, which I will put right there. Then you always have to have a yeast, though I will say you can use alcohol if you have some left over from a previous round up there or down here. And then down at the bottom, I'll put my water. And so that's what it is I'm going to distill. And so what happens is you take all of these cards, and then for each sugar, in this case 3 sugars, you add 1 alcohol. 1, 2, and 3. Then you're going to shuffle all of these up, and you're going to remove the Angel's Cut and the Devil's Cut. The Angel's Cut represents what kind of evaporates off, and the Devil's Cut is what, I guess, soaks into the barrel or whatever. And so to simulate that, you take off the bottom card, or the top card. In this case, I lost to grapes, and the bottom, which was an alcohol. And this goes back into your pantry. You can use it later. And as you recall, Alcohol can be used as a yeast or as a water. And then I have the grapes I can use again later. Then we take a look right here, and we see if I managed to accomplish any of the recipes that I have. And you start the game with moonshine and vodka, and then you have to buy these other recipes here. Well, we're taking a look here, and alcohol, great, I have 2 fruit. And I take a look and I see, well, brandy needs 2 fruit, so I can do that. Or I could do gin, which needs 2 fruit sugars. And so then I take a look at my barrels. And in this case, I have a clay barrel, which is not what is needed for brandy, but the wooden barrel is needed for brandy. And so I can brew this brandy here. And that's going to eventually get me 13 points for having that. But because this is one that needs to be aged, I take it and I put it right over here in one of my 2 aging spots, and I grab a brandy recipe and put it right there on top. And then every turn that I age it, I'll be adding one of these flavors into it. And flavors can be something good, like smoky, or it might be trash, and you get nothing. Like literally, it might be trash. And so the longer you age it, the more money it's going to be worth, and the more points it's going to be worth. There's also things that you can sell right away, and that's all just kind of depending on the recipe. And so eventually, I would sell this, and we'll say I sold this the very next turn. So I would have 1 flavor on it, and then I would just take a look at everything. So I already know that it's going to get me 13 points, because that's what the recipe said. Then I aged it 1 turn, so it's going to get me 1 more point, so I'll get 14 points for that. And then I take a look. The barrel does nothing, and I actually would discard the barrel. The fruits don't give me anything extra bonuses, though some ingredients, like these special grapes here, would give me an extra 4 points and an extra $3. The water gives me $1. The yeast gives me nothing, so that gets discarded. Alcohol gives me $1. Alcohol gives me $1. And the smokiness gives me $2. So I got 13 points and $5 for that particular recipe that I have brewed and then sold. Then once you've sold it, you actually get to take this here and place it in one of these spots. And when you place it in one of these spots, you're going to get a bonus of some kind. It might be points, or for example, here I get points or a free recipe. Over here, I could move my signature ingredient, which is this right here, which comes only for this particular CEO, to my pantry, which makes it easier for me to make his signature recipe that he can make once per game. Or maybe it's just bucks, or maybe it is a free upgrade or a free ingredient, and so on and so on and so on. And you have these little things here to track your points as you kind of go on up. Now, the only other 2 things that are worth noting is you're going to start the game with 3 secret objectives, which are going to be ways for you to get extra points at the end of the game. And then when you pass turn 3, you'll take one of the 3 secret goals that you started the game with, and you'll discard it, and you'll only have the other 2 that you're working on towards the end of the game. And then finally, there will be, depending on player count, a number of these spirit awards in the game. They're all different, and it's basically the first person to get those is going to get those points. And that's pretty much how the game goes. You're going to play over 7 rounds, and you're going to have the opportunity to brew 7 different things. And the most points at the end of the game is going to be the winner. And that's pretty much how this game works. So, what do this game? First, I really enjoy the theming behind the game. And the theming behind the game is made even better, and it works better after you've read the rulebook. Because as you're going through the rulebook, it even stops and it says in there, well, this is what we're simulating here, but that didn't quite work that way exactly, but this is why we're doing it. And something about that really grabs me in the best kind of way and makes me feel like, okay, yeah, this really does cover all the bases of this idea of distilling different spirits, and it really does work for me. Also, it helps that I like spirits in general, so I'm predisposed to enjoy this kind of game. Anyway, the next thing I'll say is there is a lot of multiplayer solitaire going on in this game, and for some people that is a bad thing. For me, that is a good thing. I like multiplayer solitaire games. I like competitive games and very interactive games as well, but I do like multiplayer solitaire games. I find great enjoyment in doing my own little puzzle, doing my own thing, and knowing that you're doing the same thing that I am, but I'm going to do it better than you. And I take great satisfaction in that. So there is that also. I think there's a good amount of variety every time you play. It's still with basically the same game. You're just kind of pursuing different ingredients and it's different drafting and stuff that you're doing every time. But it does feel like it's different every single time you're playing because you have all those different cards of the different recipes that you can get. You have all of the different characters that you can be with their different powers, and the market's always going to be different. So that does always feel like it is quite different every single time, even though it is the same basic gameplay. Next thing I'll say is the production is almost a perfect production in my mind. And I've also seen the deluxe version with the deluxe coins, which is just amazing. There's only one thing about it that is not perfect. And usually it's so small, I'm not even going to put it in the quibbles. I'm going to say everything about the production is just great. The only thing that might stop you is the score markers are big compared to the board itself. And so if you have multiple on there on the same spot, it can get a little bit wonky. As you can see in the video here, I have just 2 of them stacked up. And you have 5 players all in the same thing. It can get a little bit silly. But the production is great. It all goes in the box very, very easily. They're nice enough to give you a thing that tells you how to put it all back in the box. All of that, fantastic. I think the core gameplay itself of the buying from the market and then kind of putting together your own brew that you're kind of, it's not push your luck, but it's a little bit of a push your luck vibe because maybe you don't want to try to brew the one big thing because you're not sure if you're going to get it. And all of that, I just think it's very, very satisfying in the gameplay. Next thing I want to talk about is, even though I don't own it, I did recently get to play with the Africa Middle East expansion. And what it is what I would call an expansion that's more of a good thing. It's giving you different regions and different recipes that you can make and different characters. And there's nothing really in there that is new, but I really enjoyed having it in the game. I loved the new characters. I enjoyed, there was alcohols and spirits on there I'd never even heard of. So now I got to learn some new things, new little bits of text on the bottom to just learn little bits and pieces. And so I really, really like that expansion. It's one that I don't have it myself, but next time I'm at a convention, you better believe I'm going to walk over to the booth and say, hey, gimme, 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 and I'm going to buy one because it needs to be in my game. So what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first one is, I already mentioned, it is fairly multiplayer solitaire. There is a bit as you're kind of waiting for people to buy things from the market and they might buy something before you, but that's really the extent of the player interaction. That might not be your thing. The next thing that I'll say is something that I've already mentioned. The game is not drastically different every time that you play. The difference you're going to get is with the different recipes you're making, even though you're going to make those things the same kind of way, it's just different combinations of the contract fulfillment that you're doing. There's different cards out there you're going to get, and you're going to be different characters. So it is the same basic game every time, but as I said, I find it very satisfying, but that might not be what you are particularly looking for. And then the only other thing that I'm going to bring up that is my only real quibble, and that is, when you're playing a high player count game, there can be a significant amount of downtime, especially if, for whatever reason, you run out of money first. Sometimes there's people who are taking longer to kind of figure out what they want to do, and it takes a while to get back to you. So there can be some significant downtime at high player counts. So because of that, I think really this game at 2-3 players is probably where it's going to shine the most. And possibly solo. I actually haven't played the solo, though Mark Dainty from Not Board Gaming and Michael Kelly from One Stop Co-op Shop have both told me that the solo is very fun, and maybe I'm foolish, but I tend to trust them when they talk about if a solo works for a game. But really, that's it. I am so pleasantly surprised by this game. And you may or may not remember, when I first played this game, Dave from Paverson Games, he gave me a copy of this at Origins, and I went there specifically to learn about their next game. But he said, do you want to take a copy of this? And I was like, all right, let's do it. And at the time, I'd played it one time, and I played it at DonCon 2, and I got up, it was real late at night, and I was exhausted from a long day and a long week at work, and we started the game, a 5-player game, at like 11 o'clock or something like that, and it didn't grab me then. But I left thinking, not that there's anything wrong with it. I was like, I guess I gotta play this game again. And boy, am I glad that I did. I really enjoy this game. This was one that I wasn't sure that I was going to keep, but now I am definitely going to keep it. It helps that my wife likes it too. This is a really delightful game. And there is currently, on pre-order right now, not a Kickstarter, pre-order a new expansion. I don't know anything about that expansion, but I'm gonna go and check out that expansion when I can. So there you have it, folks. That is Distilled. As always, if I've made any mistakes on the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that in the Klingon subtitles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.